All right, the next sections of these are generally defense mechanisms that might be used to help improve yourself. I'm actually going to save sublimation for last because that is a big one that I've already kind of talked about and alluded to. I just haven't put a label on it in previous videos. So moving on. Number 8, reaction formation. So people who use this defense mechanism recognize how they feel, but they choose to behave in the opposite manner of their instincts. A person who reacts this way, for example, may feel they should not express negative emotions such as anger or frustration. Instead, they choose to instead react in an overly positive way. I get that. I think that's much more productive, only with the caveat that they go and deal with those frustrations directly. Because again, repressing those sorts of feelings, repressing those frustrations and anger instead of actually dealing with them can be, devastating.
Sweeping it under the rug.
Sweeping it under the rug. Absolutely. So then that's the thing, is that people become reaction like, oh, and it's a great distraction, I guess. It is a redirection. It's kind of like a deflection that they're doing it to go like, oh, no, I'm happy, whatever. And sometimes that pisses people off because they reacted that way. But it is considered a defense mechanism. And again, I can see it more of like trying to keep that vibe going. Hey, it's like somebody trying to push you off your bike and you're like, no, just keep going, just keep going, just keep swimming. Or pedaling in that case. But it's kind of the same idea, is you're no longer seeing that as something that is deflecting you off of your path. You were just focused on boom. And keeping your energy, your motivation, whatever you need to continue on with that. Reaction formation. That can also go the opposite way too, but then I guess that runs more into displacement or projection in that sort of sense, right? So I can see this is why, again, it can be a beneficial one, but only under the understanding that you'll deal with that later. Number 9, compartmentalization. Separating your life into independent sectors may feel like a way to protect many elements of it. For example, when you choose not to discuss personal life issues at work, you block off or compartmentalize the element of your life. This allows you to carry on without facing the anxieties or challenges while you're in that setting or mindset. I got no problem with compartmentalizing certain things, like business and personal life. It doesn't mean you can't ever talk about them, but sometimes having too much of your personal investment in there, too much of your emotions that are running in it, into your business is just bad business. How many times have we run across that? Like a lot. And I remember having a discussion with somebody from school, and they were like, I think the question was something on the lines of, I think it was an incident we were talking about, and they were talking about how, I can't not put all of my emotions and feelings into this. I can't distinguish. And they couldn't distinguish between business and personal life. They couldn't compartmentalize. And that got that person into a lot of trouble in these other incidents, because it's almost like blurring the lines between fiction and reality, right? I'm so involved in building this fiction that I can't tell what is actually real. I can't tell that it's a piece of fiction because I'm so involved in it and I feel so empathetic for these characters. And that's why you get people out there that are like angry at the actor who played King Joffrey, cussing him out on the street. I'm like, dude, that's an actor. He did a badass job at his character. That's fiction. They're not real. But because people can't compartmentalize fictional movies, fantasy, and reality, as opposed to, say, like business and personal life, that can be devastating for, how it can have devastating results. It's so weird to hear that, though. King Joffrey. Boo! Oh, that's the whole thing that
Well, Cersei too.
Yeah, Cersei too. Oh yeah, a lot of people from Game of Thrones, but that's the whole thing that they're doing in Billy Zabka. Like, he's the bad guy. I was just a kick-ass actor, but every time I go somewhere, boo! Popcorn thrown it over.
How I Met Your Mother?
Yeah, How I Met Your Mother. How they did that to Billy Zabka. And it's just like, everywhere he went, it's like... And I know Barney's character took that to the extreme. Again, fiction versus reality. Like, he was the hero. This poor... He was the Karate Kid. He had known karate. And he had to deal with this bully named Daniel. And I think I almost want to say that's what kind of spawned Cobra Kai. No spoilers, but I feel like that
Cobra Kai.
Yeah, but I feel like that premise is what spawned them to go, let's bring it back. Okay. Let's bring it back and kind of explore some of those feelings on there, because it's technically a valid point. Technically, Johnny Lawrence, he was dealing with his emotions with his ex-girlfriend. And this kid, is trying to get in his face. He even had him charge him, trying to fight him, and he tripped him a couple times, and on the third time, popped him. He gave him chances to escape. Didn't happen. Who was the real bully?
We love Karate Kid.
Yeah, Karate. I love Karate Kid though, for a lot of different reasons. But anyway, that was the whole idea of compartmentalizing, again, keeping that separate. And again, that the idea that people think that means you can't have any passion or emotion into your business is just false. They are not mutually exclusive. And that's a big one. That's another big one. Number 10, let's move on to this. Intellectualization. When you're hit with a trying situation, you may choose to remove all emotion from your responses and instead focus on quantitative facts. You may see this strategy in use when a person who is let go from a job choose to spend their days creating spreadsheets of job opportunities and leads. Again, I see nothing wrong with that. I don't. What I see that as is more, especially if you're doing it purposefully as opposed to just unconsciously, right? You can consciously make the decision to do these things, and that's really part of transforming negative stimuli into something positive, right? Turning those negative feelings that you may have into work, into building something better that's going to drive you into the next phase of your life. It's going to drive you into the next project. Like, that's another book I want to write. Literally how to use that, transform it. Like, that's again just something that can empower you. So again, intellectualization. If you're doing that and letting it run on itself, it's different, because there is that caveat of you going back and dealing with those and allowing yourself to feel that disappointment or upsetness, sadness, or whatever from that. But you still can feel it. You still have time for that. Taking time for yourself to do that and to let loose of those things. All right. Last one on here, sublimation. And this is why I saved it for last. Okay. This type of defense mechanism is considered a positive strategy. That's because people who rely on it choose to redirect strong emotions or feelings into an object or activity that is appropriate and safe. For example, instead of lashing out at your employees, you choose to channel your frustrations into kickboxing or exercise. You can also funnel or redirect the feelings into music, art, or sports. All right. Talked about this a lot. Outlets. A true outlet is sublimation. You have to consciously drive those feelings into an activity to grow. It's something that constructs. In exercise, you're in this example, kickboxing or exercise. Kickboxing, you're building a skill. You're using all that negative to transform that energy into building a skill. And you will get better and better and better due to repetition and the cyclic behavior and how our bodies behave toward it. You will build muscle. You're in the gym. If you're exercising, lifting weights, putting all that frustration into the exercise. And we've talked about that too. There's a fine line, right, between distraction and an outlet. Distraction, yawn. So I'd like your perspective on it, since I know I'm talking a lot.
I mean, I don't really have anything to say on that, just because, like, just the outlets, you know. I feel like sometimes it's hard to distinguish when you're getting distracted versus actually using it as an outlet, because when you're focused on making sure you're hitting the right way, or making sure you're exercising the right way, or making sure you're drawing the right thing correctly, tend to lose focus on why you're using it as an outlet, and you're just more focused on what you're doing in the moment.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's the difference,
a distraction.
Right? Correct. So yeah, have that fine line, right? And it can happen really quick when you're distracted by, like, oh yeah, you're, like you said, focusing on the technique versus just letting it loose, right? But sublimation, that is your outlets, driving that negativity into something that you can build. This is why it's important, whether it's music or art. You know, I love watching. There's that moment in Drumline with a conductor. You know, I think they forced him into doing like some modern piece, hip hop piece, because, you know, by the dean or something like that, and he's in it. He is conducting. He's taking his frustrations out into the art of conducting his band to move and to do it, and he's just so emotional. I love watching that scene, because that was an outlet for him. He used art, music. He wasn't even playing the music, but in a sense, he's commanding that music from it. And if anybody's ever played in band, you know, and really looked at the nuances that conductors use when they're conducting, like, I'd say take a look at it. You know, it's very fascinating to watch, just the human behavior for that. And when you can tell that not just the passion that comes out, again, it may be their frustration coming out, which may be misconstrued, but at the same time, having that emotional response into it, guiding it, directing it, that's absolutely huge. You know, you can create such big successes purely just by utilizing sublimation, consciously using sublimation for that, consciously using outlets, thinking about it, right, instead of getting distracted by technique or stuff like that, right?
Right.
So.
Well, I feel like sometimes it's hard.
Yeah.
Because you can easily get distracted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's where the practice comes from. What's the first step to every change? It's awareness. If you're not aware that you can do that consciously, how are you going to even know that it's a tool that you can use? Awareness, always the first one. Always. Hey, thanks for checking out my video on here. If you like the content that I'm putting out, please be sure to like and subscribe down below, and add a comment, because I'd love to see what your guys' thoughts are on this sort of content and these topics that I'm putting out there. Alright, until next time, stay golden.